Today we're going to do the tip of the month, and I'm going to be answering a question that I haven't answered in years. I remember it was like, oh gosh, I was living way back in Lexington, maybe 2 or 3 houses back, and it was what I eat. I get that question a lot. Now, one thing some people who have watched my channel will get a lot of folks that say, hey, I want to reverse my arteries. And if I know what you're eating, I'll do that too, and plan on reversing my arteries. Couple of things, or reversing plaque in my arteries. A couple of things to think about. Number one, reversing plaque in your arteries, you really don't want, that's not a practical goal. It is practical, however, to stabilize it. And we do that all day, every day. And I have not yet met anybody who could not stabilize their plaque in their arteries and take the risk off the table. And yes, it's mostly lifestyle. You can't out-prescribe, out-stent, out-bypass, out-supplement, or even outrun a diet. So lifestyle is king. And guess what the biggest part of lifestyle is? Diet. So I get a lot of questions about what do you eat? Now, I do some things for demonstration purposes for the channel. And I also have some unique issues in terms of my own life. So I'm not sure that you would want to eat exactly what I eat. Let me give you a couple of examples. About 6 months ago, I did a 5-day water fast. Now, for those of you who can do it, I do recommend it. I think it's great, even for people who have a low BMI, a low weight already. I had a BMI about 23, 22 at about the time that I did my water fast, and wasn't really looking to lose weight. I was more looking to change my metabolism, and that I did. I lost 10 pounds during that 5 days, but then gained about 12 back over the next 2 weeks, and felt like I got stronger, and clearly did get stronger. I'm doing a lot of other things too. Speaking of getting stronger, for the past 2 months, I've added 2-a-day resistance training, very light, but it's made a big impact on my my other day of week of heavy resistance training. So I'm doing a lot of things. Another thing I've done for the channel is I ate a whole lot of eggs. And part of that was to be a demonstration for an upcoming video. It was surprising what happened. So you may not want to eat as many eggs as I have eaten. The other thing is not associated with the channel. The other thing that changes or impacts my diet is where I live. Since my divorce a couple of years ago, I live half-time with my partner, Cindy, here in Athens, Georgia. She's a vegan and a marathon runner. So I just ran 5 miles before the show today. And I tend to eat a little bit more vegan. She doesn't try to get me to do that, but I tend to eat a little bit more plant-based when I'm here 3 or 4 days a week. When I'm living with my family of origin back in South Carolina, the other 3 or 4 days a week, I tend to eat a lot more, not carnivore, but a lot more omnivore at least. So today we're going to go into a little bit more depth on what I eat. I noticed we've already gotten a whole lot of questions. One question had to do with grains, and that's the big thing. I avoid ultra-processed grains. You'll see that I don't have that in any of my diet. Now, another question had to do with no grains at all. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show. But before we do, my good friend and channel manager, Dr. JV, formerly known as Jesus, is telling me that if I don't let him on the show, the ratings are going to drop. So I guess I better bring Jesus on. Jesus, are you there?
Yeah, you don't know how to keep a secret, right? I just wanted to ask you real quick, what is that thing that you use on the thumbnail?
Oh, that thing. Did you see that? I know you
What?
did.
No,
You're
on the
talking
thumbnail.
about the thing that I had my fork in.
Yeah.
That was eggs. When I'm at my family's house, my mom's house back in Spartanburg, I go into these 3 or 4 month habits, and my habit right now is um, to take a couple of eggs, uh, butter, maybe tablespoon, maybe 2 tablespoons, some bacon, and some sausage. Sometimes it's all bacon, sometimes it's all sausage, and sometimes it's both. And mix all those up and put them in the microwave and cook them. And that's what that was. Do you want to show that image, or are you able to?
I don't know if we can. Gilbert, do you think we can do it? You can set it up. We can show it. Well, but I think most people who clicked on the video saw the image, and that's what we wanted, just to wonder what is that, and you to
What
explain
is
what
it?
it was. So can you tell more a little bit about if you're doing any kind of intermittent fasting? Do you skip breakfast? Do you skip dinner? What do you do?
No, I don't. I've gone for years where I did intermittent fasting, and most of my intermittent fasting was skipping breakfast. I did for a year or two do the correct form of intermittent fasting, where I was skipping dinner, but I'm not doing either one right now.
Hmm. But you don't need to, right? Or do you think it's necessary to do some kind of intermittent fasting to reverse plaque for everybody?
It's interesting. You still hear a lot of debate about that. It was the big thing. What, 5 to 10 years ago? Then it calmed down. Then it came back. I do think it has a place, and especially for people who need to control their weight, or having a problem controlling their weight. I do think it's very, very helpful. If you go back, there was a good article in the New England Journal. What is the day after Christmas? I think it was 2018.
The day
It
after
was
Christmas is 26th.
in the year 2018.
I'm just messing with you. So what happened with that
It
article?
wasn't 2019 because COVID had already started with all of that, but it was a year or two before COVID. And they had a great article on intermittent fasting. One of the things they did was go back and reanalyze some of the data about looking at what was the big thing prior to that, and what I did most of my life, and that is caloric restriction. And made the point that what we used to think was caloric restriction, especially with lab animals, actually really intermittent fasting, because you'd go feed those animals once a day, and most of them were in competition with each other for the food, so they ate it all immediately, and then they didn't eat again for 24 more hours.
Hmm. And what's your perspective on that? So, do you think intermittent fasting is working just because you're skipping meals and because of the food that you're not eating? Is this caloric restriction by itself? If you go back to Roy Walford's experiment on the biosphere 2, I was kind of surprised of seeing that even though that's more like a prolonged fasting experiment, they were eating a bunch of carbs, even if they were kind of cutting on calories. And that brings the question that a lot of people has, like, well, how much of the impact on weight loss and plaque reversal comes from avoiding carbs versus just decreasing your calories?
I think that whole science is a mess right now. I think it's clear. I think you see a jumble of things that actually make sense. So, for example, if you're at a BMI of 19 or 20, and most of that's muscle, very low body fat. If you're in a very low body fat perspective, the lines, I think the lines metabolically between intermittent fasting and caloric restriction get kind of blurred.
Mhm. So the answer is your favorite answer of every single time I ask you something. It depends.
Yeah, I think it depends. I do think the major thing depends on whether you're at a calorie deficit or not. if you've got a fatty liver, if you've got too much body fat, if your fat cells are bloated and they're putting out a lot of resistin, I think uh, yes, you can do intermittent fasting, but I would go straight to something like OMAD or every other day, one meal, to get back to more of a healthy metabolism.
Okay. All right. Fair. And can you just address the elephant in the room? You are showing eggs as one of the main foods to reverse plaque or keep plaque away, arterial plaque away. And most people will not, well, most of the medical community will not agree with that. They will tell you, oh, that's very high on saturated fats. How come eggs are going to keep your arterial plaque away?
Well, a couple of things. As you know, our friend Nick Norwitz just did a big egg video. He ended up getting picked up by some national news outlets looking at this very same issue. For those of you who don't know Nick Norwitz, he's involved with that lean mass hyperresponder community. And yes, most people, I mean, I was surprised to the reaction to the live show that we did on eggs in May. It was incredibly popular, and it's still drawing a lot of views, and we're still getting a lot of reactions like, I thought eggs were bad for you. And I thought people had gotten over and beyond that long ago, but evidently not. I also thought it was pretty clear that eggs did not raise your cholesterol. And then we did that little demonstration project.
You're spoiling the beans. You're spoiling the beans. We're gonna have a video of Dr. Brewer eating a tons of eggs. He became the Eggman. Don't spoil the beans. You're gonna have to wait for that to see the results. I'm sorry for doing that. But
And
bottom line,
put in an exceptional amount of egg jokes in that
was
script.
Tracy. We're gonna give credit to Tracy who helps me with the script. So yeah, that was all her.
Bottom line is it was a lot of fun. It was surprising, and it raised a lot of questions.
Well, you went into a bunny hole as you do. So basically, do you think eating eggs is a good way to keep arterial plaque in check?
Yeah. Healthy. I think eggs are healthy. Is that where you were going?
No, that's what I'm going. That's where I'm going because I see it on the comments every single day, especially to responses to that top 7 foods that people thought as healthy. Can you give us just a short list of foods that you think most people can eat or should eat?
Well, just before I answer that question, back to the eggs, one of the things that happened, I did a couple of things. I usually did like a light, low carb diet until we started doing some stuff this year for the channel. One of the things I did was that 5-day fast. Then after that 5-day fast, we had the event down in Dallas. What was that? March?
I believe it was February, March. Yeah.
So as you know, there were a lot of carnivores down there. And some of the feedback I got from several of the folks, what's the name of the couple that we had on the show?
You're talking about Tony and Raquel?
Yeah, Tony and Raquel and some others said, hey, Doc, why don't you try eating a little bit less protein and more fat? So I did, and that's when we started getting some significant surprises with LDL. So I started backing off on that, adding more carbs back in, and that's when we got into the egg video, which I won't spill any more beans on. But one of the things that I did after that egg video was, and after the carnivore experience, I stopped doing these. I was doing steel cut oats about 3 times a week, 4 times a week for breakfast, and there was a little bit of discussion about grains. To me, I think if we just took ultra processed grains out of the American diet, that one thing would do more than the whole medical system. All the money that we pay to train doctors, hospitals, you name it. If we took ultra-processed grains out of the American diet, we'd end up fixing so much of our problem. It'd have a huge impact on the national debt. So Sweet Adeline, for example, was asking, so ancient organic grains are no good? No, I didn't say that. I just said what we have done to grains now and the way we're stuffing them down everybody, not everybody, but most people, that is the biggest, I think ultra-processed grains are the biggest killer and disabler in our world.
How are steel cut oats unprocessed grains then?
Yeah, I would. Oh, they're clearly not ultra processed because
Okay.
ultra processed means you make it into like a microscopic level of particle. And that's the whole point behind steel cut oats. I don't know if it's going to show up on the camera or not. I used to have a bunch of them in a little baggie in my, and had a baggie at my desk. Let me see if you can see. Can you see those little kernels?
Does look like more like fingernails or something. What is that? Gross.
They're little BBs right in between my fingers.
Okay.
Here, hold on just a second. I may be able to get them up closer.
So are you now gonna show us?
Can you see
toenails or what? Go higher.
So I don't know if you could see it then or not, but it's like little BBs. Okay. And a BB is not ultra processed at all. That's why
it's like when you say BBs, those are rounded. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, they're a rounded particle,
okay,
at least the size of a grain of sand, and usually maybe multiple sizes larger than a grain of sand. So what happens then is the surface area is so much smaller. With shaved instant oats, they cut it flat and press it into a flat thing. So total surface area, the hot water is able to cook it immediately. With steel cut oats, you put it in hot water and it's going to take you 20 minutes at least to soften that oat. That's the same thing in terms of eating it. With the ultra processed grains, your body can immediately pull that sugar out. And with steel cut oats, it takes some time. Now, these take much longer time. You can chew on these. So I had some of these this morning. When I'm at Cindy's, for example, I eat a lot more nuts, and I still eat these. I got back into these.
What is that? Oh, those. Oh, let me tell you, and put us on the comments on the chat if you do this atrocious thing to do. I mean, I personally don't like it because of the taste, not anything else. But like having some boiled eggs on an empty stomach, like nothing before that. Yeah. Cold boiled eggs.
Yeah, right out of the refrigerator.
But maybe I'm in the minority. That doesn't.
I think you are.
I mean, I'd rather do an omelette for me at home.
Oh, well, I'd rather do an omelette too. You go back and you look at that thing that we had on the thumbnail.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, you had me go back and make another one for the thumbnail purposes.
Oh yeah.
And I was tempted to eat that second one, because those things are so good.
Oh yeah.
I gave it to Liam and he loved it. Liam is my nephew. He was staying over that night because we had we're out of power, or his family's out of power. My sister's out of power. My niece is out of power. So he came over and slept with me and Mom. Have some walnuts.
Walnuts. Oh yeah, you brought those to Dallas when we met over there, and I stole all of your walnuts. They're really good.
Did you eat my walnuts? I don't remember that. Oh yes, yeah. I do. You did.
You didn't even notice.
Yeah.
All right. So let me ask you. Oh, pistachio. I love pistachios as well. Do you see any problem with pistachios? I mean, of course, everybody's gonna say if you eat too much of something, but yeah.
Pistachios are supposed to be a little bit higher carb. The real low carb nuts are pecans, which are a big thing in the rural Southeast where I'm from, rural Southeast U.S. Macadamia nuts, are also really good for keto diet. But I have to tell you, as I've said before, I'm able to maintain ketosis about 5 days a week now. Prior to going really low carb, I was about 100 grams of carbs per day. And that was like 6 months ago when I was eating more of the steel cut oats. At this point, I can eat all the pistachios I want and I still remain ketotic. Of
Yeah.
course, I do a lot of workout. I mean, I do 2 a day, minimal but significant resistance trainings almost every day, in the morning and at night before I go to bed.
Yeah.
And I just ran 5 miles, for example. Usually I'll get a 5-mile run in. I didn't used to do, I went years without doing any distance running. But like I said, Cindy's a marathon runner. So I've added that back into my routine.
Yeah. Well, your knees allow you to do that.
Yeah, my knees will allow me to do that. I thought you said my niece. My knees. Yes, exactly right.
Well, both of them. And the other thing is, I just to let you know, I can attest that Dr. Brewer does what he's saying that he does. We spent a couple of days in San Diego. We spent a couple of days in Dallas, and we were both doing that. Exercise every day because that's what you need to do.
Especially once you get age 65. When you're young and in your 30s, like Jesus, you think you don't have to do that. But Jesus has his own story. I mean, excuse me, Dr. JV has his own story about that.
Oh yeah, I have had my fair share of challenges, but I wanted to put you on the spot as I do real quick. We're talking about eating. We're talking about what to eat to keep arteries clean. Vegan, carnivore, paleo. What else is there? Mediterranean. What's all that about? What's your perspective? I know your perspective. I just want the audience to know your perspective on why some people thrive in carnivore, why some people thrive on vegan, why everybody is claiming, okay, this is the best diet, everybody should do this.
So we had him on the channel. I know a lot of people love to hate on him because he's a New Yorker and he speaks like a classic New Yorker, Robert Lustig. And he's got a great quote in that space. He said, any diet, and I agree with it 100%, any diet ranging all the way from carnivore and even lion, all the way to the other side, going through paleo, going through all those diets, gluten-free diet, then all the way over to vegetarian and even vegan. All those diets can work. There's one that doesn't, and that is the standard American diet, because it's mixing, not mostly for one reason, because of those ultra processed carbs. But it's even worse because it mixes those ultra processed carbs with a lot of fats. So your typical hamburgers are great until you add the bun, which has all those ultra processed carbs in it. Those ultra processed carbs stimulate your insulin. And what most people don't know is that insulin stops us from burning fat. So we're okay as long burning fat, so long as we're not stimulating our insulin. Once we start doing both of those at the same time, we're in big trouble. Now, there are exceptions to everything. I've seen some weird diets that I normally would just say, I don't think so. For example, Penn Jillette of Penn and Teller lost 100 pounds on the potato diet. He ate nothing but potatoes. And obviously, potatoes are going to stimulate your insulin. But I think Penn was pretty open, and a lot of people that do that are pretty open, and we all know this. There is a major addictive quality to food. I mean, you can't do something at least 3 times a day for 60 years without getting some emotional and addictive quality around it, especially when you start adding the hormonal impact of eating stuff that has glucose in it. So his perspective was, look, I don't like potatoes that much. If I said I'm not going to eat anything but potatoes, that puts some guardrails around it, and I'm just not going to eat that much. and he lost 100 pounds. So even though it was a diet that I wouldn't approve of, because potatoes are tend to bump almost everybody's sugar levels, it still made sense for him, because at the end he was a heck of a lot healthier, 100 pounds less.
Well, but that's a point for calorie restriction.
It is. And I hate to admit it, and I know you hate it when I say it depends, but it really does. There are situations where calorie restriction does work. I think in Penn Jillette's case was a really good case for that.
Yep. The other thing that will make a point is, I know this is not going to be popular, and I'm planning to do my own experiment on carnivore diet. Just so you know, I do eat meat. I do eat a lot of everything. I think you and I share kind of the same omnivorous. How do you say that? Like
Omnivorous.
I eat a lot of it. Yeah,
carnivore would be carnivorous. Omnivore would be omnivorous.
I like to combine. I like to eat a bunch of everything that I can.
Not when I'm paying the restaurant bill.
Oh no, that's a steak right there. Yeah, if you're paying, that's a steak. No question. Of course, the more expensive steak on the cart, definitely. But and yeah, don't test me. I'm gonna ask for that. But I do see that there are challenges when you're doing a very, very restrictive diet, like a potato diet, like a hard vegan diet, like a lion diet. I know that there are videos out there. I know what Dr. Berry says. I know what Paul Saladino says. Dr. Baker say that you can get all your micronutrients out of a carnivore diet. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think you can get a bunch of stuff, but if you really list all the micronutrients you need, you do need to choose from every other side. Same for vegan. I don't think that on a vegan diet you can get all of the micronutrients you need. I think you just don't. But
well,
if
you
eat a lot of
with that one comment ticked off everybody.
Oh, I know. But if you look at the content on each and every one of those food items, like individually, and you think about all the micronutrients you need, and you think about the amino acids, you think about the different minerals, you think about the different electrolytes, you think about the different whatever. We use an app, and we're not sponsored by them. It's called Chronometer or Chronometer, and it's a food log. And I know it's not perfect. It might have its challenges. But if you put in there everything that you're eating on a daily basis, you will find out if you're actually getting everything you need or not. And I noticed that myself as well. I lost some weight when I stopped eating tortillas. For me, that was the one. Just stopping tortillas helped me lose weight. Just doing that.
Yep.
But when I started to log my information, I noticed that I was very low on calcium. I was very low on the amount of selenium that I was getting, even though I was eating plenty of meat. And then that's when I started to include some other different plants and some other different types of meat, of course, as well. I do love to eat liver, for example. I will eat liver. And that's when I kind of started to improve on that. And that's just my case, of course. What I will suggest is getting that app, logging in what you eat, and you really find out, oh, I'm not getting enough of this micronutrient. And that's another piece that we don't talk a lot about. We are all wrapped up on you need carbs, you need fat, you need protein, but your micronutrients are essential as well. There are little tools that will help your metabolism actually get the energy that you need to do all these processes in your metabolism.
Rhonda Patrick's really good at micronutrients. That was what I think she's got a doctorate in nutrition, and she worked with Ames. Was it Bill Ames? Anyhow, the fellow that came up with the triage theory for micronutrients. And I've been meaning to talk to our content manager for the channel about, we just haven't covered micronutrients very much.
We haven't, and just so you know, that information came from our own vegan doctor. So we have a vegan doctor on the team. Dr. Burr and I we're not vegan. We do think that restrictive diets have a purpose and they work for some people. And the other challenge that we see on any diet, almost any diet that is not the standard American diet, any diet that requires you to do some effort to get some healthy food, it's going to be hard to keep on a long-term basis. It's just hard. That's just the way it is. So you need to find out what works for you, what's easier for you to get, that it's not ultra processed and it's not going to take you back to the carb addiction mode.
Yeah, Miranda sort of got her trial by fire and a few beatings when she appeared first on the channel. I remember that day.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. The problem is
I was traveling with Cindy, and like I said, Cindy's a vegan. We were in Utah, and we were listening, and I was going, oh no, because we've got so many carnivores, and the carnivores are a lot of them tend to be rabid about their diet. And it's like, I love the carnivore diet. It's very, very easy. You like it too. I think you like it even more than I do.
I do.
It's very easy for what most people need for good health, and that is cutting those carbs out by the time they get middle-aged. At least most of the folks in our audience. But as we've said, there is a place for other diets, and it's like, fools rush in where angels fear to tread.
I didn't get that. Is that a Southern phrase, or what was that?
I don't know if that's I didn't know that was a Southern phrase. I hear so many phrases, but I grew up in the South, so I don't know if it was Southern or what it was. But anyhow, the bottom line was Miranda got a beating, but she stuck in there. She responded very well, and she's been a major force for us in terms of exactly what you're talking about, helping us focus on the details, the micronutrients, a place where we have always been weak in this channel.
Yeah. And there's one more thing before we'll move on. I think we should answer some questions, and unless there's something else we haven't addressed on your diet, though, think about that. Something that you do every day: coffee, for example, no alcohol, no smoking, all that basic stuff, right?
I've gone up and down in terms of alcohol for most of my life. It was like the equivalent of 1 or 2 drinks a week. I started relaxing when I retired. It was like my 3rd or 4th retirement, and drinking a little bit more, like a nightcap each, or not a nightcap, but an appetizer each day before dinner. But then I got to where I said, well, here's what happened with that. The article came out about alcohol pushing atrial fibrillation, and we've just done a video on atrial fibrillation. And for those of you who don't know, I have it, paroxysmal atrial fib. And alcohol was discovered about 4 years ago to make it worse. Then again, with my new relationship here with Cindy, she's a teetotaler, and it's just easier for me to not drink. I'm enjoying it a lot more. I feel better. So I'm not drinking at all for the past, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, 2 or 3 drinks a year for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Regarding other types of meats, you mentioned liver and Paul Saladino. There's it is worthwhile. And anytime you talk about a carnivore diet, you really have to talk about definitions. Most people assume carnivore diet is nothing but muscle meat, period. And that's not what most people define as a carnivore diet. Paul Saladino, for example, does eat muscle meat, but he also has fruits, a lot of organ meats, and honey. So then you look at, do you know the official Proper Human Diet, Ken Berry's definition of, quote, carnivore?
I got into a discussion with a commenter. I think kind of a discussion, because he was like, no, Proper Human Diet includes no plants, and I was like, I'm looking to the Proper Human Diet document that Ken Berry shares, and it clearly states that vegetables are part of Proper Human Diet. They define a kind of a spectrum of what they call a proper human diet. So there's
Yeah,
a lion diet where you don't include
yeah.
vegetables, but there's a part there where you include it. And just so you know, I found a hidden gem on YouTube. Canberry has a channel with his wife Nisha
Mm-hmm.
about their farm where they grow vegetables and asparagus, and they teach you how to do it.
Mm.
So clearly, vegetables have a place on a proper human diet, as defined by Dr. Berry. But if you prefer meat, I mean, go for it.
I would agree with you. I think his definition of the diet that has nothing but animal products is more of a lion diet, and that carnivore is similar to what I've tended to eat for decades, and that is meat and veg and low
Yeah,
carb veg
yeah, and fish. We haven't
and
discussed
fish.
poultry and fish. I think even if you take a look at the American Heart Association, that we beat up on them a lot because they listed the entire list of best diets, and low carb ketogenic was at the very bottom, just
Yeah.
because of the high amounts of saturated fats. But they still have a point on the benefits of a Mediterranean diet. In a Mediterranean diet without that many grains, it can be a healthy option as well. And I think we're closer to that. It's just kind of a Mediterranean diet without that many whole grains and more saturated fats. I do think there's kind of the two sides on things that I don't agree with. Like, if you're on the vegan side, especially if you're saying this is because of ethical reasons and taking care of animals and climate change, and there's a bunch of stuff to consider on thinking about what agriculture involves, because just saying eat plants is going to save the planet, I don't think that's the case. But there's the other side of,
Oh my Lord.
which I don't agree with, where you
You're
say,
going to get
uh, well, that's my perspective. I might be wrong. I'll be happy to be proven wrong. But that's the other perspective on the carnivore side, where people say, you know what, plants are trying to kill you, so you don't eat plants because they are creating toxins, so anybody don't eat them. Well, of course they're poisonous plants, but there are also animals that have some kind of poison. I don't think animals want to be eaten either. You know,
yeah.
that's just the way of life. You are gonna eat one of those things if you want to combine it. So we are more of have a more like a neutral perspective on those, and I think both sides have something useful, and you can use them if you need that. If you need to, if you want to restrict protein and meat, go ahead. If you need to restrict carbs, or you don't like vegetables, I mean, that's okay. But just saying that there's one solution for everybody, I don't think that's reality. Oxalates, for example, right? Oxalates
Mm-hmm.
are a real thing. There are people who are sensitive to oxalates. Do I
Oh,
think that
tell my
everybody?
brother.
Do I
Tell
think
my
everybody needs to avoid oxalates? I don't think everybody needs to. There are some people that need to avoid them.
Tell my brother-in-law that we internally, and I hope my family doesn't beat me up for sharing this story, but a couple of people in my family started getting into making kale smoothies, and they were doing that to lose weight, and they loved it. They shared it with another member of our family. He started doing it, and then he had a kidney stone, oxalate.
Yeah, that happens. Of course, that happens. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. But from saying that oxalates can be a problem for some people to say oxalates can be a problem for everybody, that's where I don't think. I mean, I will be on your team of it depends.
yeah. It's
I,
very
I
unfortunate, but
yeah.
reality is complicated.
Oh yeah. Who would have thought that nutrition science is complicated?
Yeah.
All right. So one last thing. So how many times a day you eat?
I still eat 3 times a day, and as you see, I've got my own munchie thing going on, and you had me bring up all my props for today. So
Yeah.
I've eaten a couple of nuts while I'm sitting there listening to you get us into trouble.
But what's the munchie? Is that the munch that Dr. Lustig promotes? Or
I've got
what are
Munch
you talking
Munch
about?
downstairs. Dr. Lustig's thing is his artificially added
Fiber.
fiber. Mm-hmm.
That claims decreases the absorption of glucose, right?
Yeah.
It might. I mean, it might, but it also says about other stuff like fructose as well, isn't it?
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, so there's a thing called Munch Munch. I started to bring it up as one of my props for today. I actually had some yesterday, first time in like 6 months. And I don't know if I wasn't looking or if I didn't have a choice, but when I bought it, it had the flavored kind and it was like strawberry, raspberry or something. And it would have been better off to just not have any flavoring to it. I put it in my tea and it makes your tea sort of gravelly. Like,
Mm,
what the whole idea behind it is not so much for people that are eating a healthy diet. It's for people that are eating ultra processed foods and to go back and add true appropriate fiber to their diet. That's the
yeah.
goal.
And it's hard. I mean, if you live in the city and or wherever you live, it's sometimes it's hard just to go to a local farm and make sure that everything that you're getting it's as organic as possible. And yet, if you don't know about if the soil is contaminated, the water is contaminated, what are the farmers feeding to those cattle to the cattle, it's hard to really know that you're getting the best food possible. So we just can't trust and try. That's all we can do. And the last thing I want to
And
mention
what's our
before we
bioindicators?
yeah, of course you can track that. And just to close this real quick about carbs. The problem with carbs is not so much that you get a glucose spike. Of course, that's not good. If you're spiking at 1 hour at 200, 250, that's not normal. Your metabolism
Yeah,
is not
that's not
handling
good.
carbs well. But the problem is not the spike. The problem is staying on high levels of glucose, high levels of insulin over time. So what I do, what Dr. Brewer and I do, and I mean, you're sharing secrets here, and just to tell you something. Once I went into the stream, the audience doubled, just so you know. But we were on that.
Here we
We,
go. Look, Chat
uh,
Verma. Where does Jesus have his medical practice? We'd love to go see it. Please don't chat. I'm not. I'm not going to tell you. He doesn't have time enough to manage the channel properly anyway. He sent me a script last night and said, "Hey, can you have this done by tomorrow morning?" No, I can't.
well, just so you know, I see patients in Mexico. I can see patients in the U.S. because I will get a cease and desist from Dr. Brewer. But
Yeah,
I see
right.
patients from Mexico. If you're in Mexico, I can see you.
Retro.
Querétaro. Hey, you got it right.
There you go.
All right. So, real quick. So, is the spikes are not so much the problem. The problem is getting those levels high, right? So we were in Dallas and I'm gonna use the word correctly. We spoiled ourselves with a really good ice cream. And what did we do next? Go take a long walk
Mm-hmm.
and get that blood glucose as down as low as possible. That is an ice cream a good thing to do? Definitely not. But what's life without ice cream? So if
That's
you are gonna indulge yourself with something, just be aware of what you're putting in your body and get rid of those glucose spikes. If you're doing ice cream every day, well, that's a problem.
That is a problem. So, Cindy, as I said, is a vegan, and I'm a low carber, and we still go get ice cream usually at least once a week, sometimes twice. But as you said, it doesn't have to be as bad as you think. And there's a comment on here about how to make some very healthy ice cream.
Oh yeah, exactly. There are options like the ice creams that you can get in the U.S. I haven't seen, at least on my small town. I haven't seen where they have an allulose style of ice cream. So I avoid ice creams over here. I think the last time I ate ice cream was with you probably
Mm.
over there in Dallas. Uh, just I want to give a quick shout out to Joseph Colando for becoming a new member. Thank you so much. DG, thank you so much for becoming a member, and Donald Lewis. Thank you so much. That goes a long way. Gilbert, if you can put the graph, yeah. So to become a member, just go to his Dr. Brewer's face is in there and click on join. The perks of becoming a member, and just I'm gonna kind of spare myself with problems. We love you all. If you're subscribed, not subscribed, you're just viewing the channel, we love you anyway. But our members, we appreciate you because you're going the extra mile to support the channel. We appreciate that, and that's why we answered your questions first. And also we started putting some short videos for you guys, members only. So if you are a premium member, comment on any of our videos, I'll see it, and we're going to try to do a video answer for you, and every member of the channel can see that answer. You just cover the dose of nattokinase you use. You just cover
Mhm.
what to do if you have cardiovascular mixed plaque.
Mixed plaque.
I just recorded another one about if LDL and platelet count matter. We're gonna post that probably on Sunday. So if you become a member, we'll appreciate that. If you don't want to be a member, that's fine. Thank you for watching. Joe SXM, please explain fibrous cap versus calcified plaque in relation to plaque stabilization. Interesting
Hey,
question.
that one's for you.
So usually, to me, it's kind of the same. Correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, it's kind of the same. Like most of the fibrous cap on the plaque is calcium. Most of that is calcified. Yeah. You can have some cap that is not calcified enough. That's when you get into the point of a mixed plaque that we just mentioned, or just a cap that is not at all fibrous or calcified. So the more calcium there is on the plaque, the more stable it is, the less likely to rupture it's going to be. The problem is calcified plaque comes from soft plaque. So what we do see is that you might have a beautiful calcified plaque over here, but in the sides, on the corners, you might be still building some soft plaque if you're not doing the right lifestyle changes. And that's where that can plaque get ruptured. So you might have a lot of calcium over here, but if you have some soft spots over here, those can still rupture. So that's a process of stabilizing the plaque. People get concerned about the size of plaque, but just like in other stuff in life, evidence says that size doesn't matter. It's more about the type of plaque. Dr. Bird likes that joke. I haven't gotten stronger since changing lifestyle. I can lift 100. Is that £100 or $100 bag of groceries with one hand now?
Well, that's because $100 bag of groceries is half what it used to be.
Well, it depends what you spend your $100 on.
That's right.
Okay, so yeah, and I mean that happens when you start building metabolically active muscle. Yeah. You get that. Later harvest, for the most part, I also stopped eating bread. Yeah, I think that's a very first step. And I do eat some bread here and there. Try that to be sprouted grains, or there is a very low carb bread available over here, but still it's not the healthiest option. I try to avoid it if I can. Trial that. I haven't seen you before, I think. Thank you so much. 65-year-old male with 2 stents. Sorry about that. Keto, 1.5 years, lost 70 pounds. Congratulations. Yeah. CRP optimal, LPPLA2 optimal, myeloperoxidase optimal. That's kind of a basic inflammation panel screening. Thank you so much for sharing.
Where did you get that trail, Dad?
Successful.
Yeah.
CIMT, some plaque on the CIMT here and there. Planning on taking colchicine and rosuvastatin. So tomorrow we're having a live shows with Dr. Brewer about colchicine. Don't miss that one.
And another thing I'd say is don't worry so much about that early event risk on the CIMT. Take a look at that, and maybe go back and look. Either come to see us or go back and look at some of the videos I've done where we talk about interpretation of CIMT.
Yep. And see
that
a
lot of people coming to us with CIMT, and they're worried about that early event risk, and it's you should worry and think about other stuff on that report.
Yeah, and I think that's the next question, Dr. Burr. So what to do if you already have established plaque?
Well, we send out the Honda study probably, or at least I personally send out the Honda study probably at least 3 to 5 times a day with our patient population. And the Honda study is something we may want to cover it again. We've covered it before. It's called Honda because the principal investigator, the first one listed, was a fellow named Honda. And he was looking at CIMTs. He took about 200 people, and he followed about 100 of them had calcified plaque and 100 of them had non-calcified plaque. And then he did what's called first he did optical character recognition. And the optical character recognition basically showed this is not a subjective interpretation. I realize I'm going down a long bunny hole, but I'll come back up.
You already
Uh,
lost me. So I hope the audience is still following you because I'm not.
Bottom line is the people that had calcified plaque, they had barely, I mean, they just stopped having events. They had a couple of events early on, and they just stopped having events. It was like they didn't have plaque. The people, on the other hand, that had non-calcified plaque, they just kept having events month after month, year after year. So the point behind all this, Dad, Trail Dad, is if you've got plaque, the goal is not to reverse it. Yes, I know a couple of our more popular videos had to do with my reversal of plaque, and it was real. It's not untrue. It's not clickbait. It's very clickable though, but it gets a lot of people thinking, I want to reverse all of my plaque. What you're Even those rare people that do quote reverse plaque are probably pulling inflammation out of the plaque. It's doing the same thing. It's lifestyle. At the end of the day, it's improving that body composition, watching carbs on a day-to-day basis, exercising, keeping those ultra processed grains out of your diet.
And I'm gonna try to summarize this in less than 30 seconds.
Okay, hold on. Let me time it.
Okay, go ahead.
Hold on.
Let's see.
Well, see, that's the problem. See, I went down my bunny hole, and that gave you time to think through it. That's what happens the whole time. I'd go out there sweating on the ground, the field of competition, and you sit back and watch and say, "Oh, I could have done that so much better." Okay, here we go.
I'm not gonna say what you said again. I'm just gonna give you kind of a framework of what you need to take a look at. Any person can do this. The pillars that you need to take care of.
By the way,
don't interrupt. Oh well, if you're interrupting me, include more, like 10 seconds more. Watch your diet, and by watching your diet, I mean track your carbs, track if your glucose is going up or not, track your insulin, track your lipids, keep down your triglycerides and your HDL, keep your HDL high, and if you're concerned about LDL and ApoB, keep those down as well. Track your inflammation panel. The less inflammation, the better. Exercise, that's key. Resistance training, high intensity if you can do it. Sleep better. Do a sleep hygiene method to get some better sleep. Avoid toxins as much as possible. If that's hardly impossible, but do your best to avoid toxins. Environmental toxins, don't use plastic, among other things. And avoid stressful situations. Have good personal relationships. Go into communities. Have a religion, wherever works for you. And when you do all of that, you have more chances to stabilize your plaque, basically. So it's just not one thing. More than 30 seconds, probably. Yeah, it is.
Okay. I don't know if you see this.
That's your fault. Like 40 seconds of those were you interrupting me.
It was my fault. So my interruption lasted 46 seconds.
It lasted like 5 minutes. Judy McMillan, thank you so much for becoming a member. And Jan Johnson, thank you so much for becoming a member. We really appreciate it. Let me go back and try to find the next question. I hope I'm not missing anyone. Lucian P, calorie restriction seems to work. It does. If you want to lose weight, calorie restriction works. I mean, there's no way around it. I know people will say we're not a closed system. The calories in, calories out method doesn't work. It does. Lower calories and lower fat, though. I think there is something there to consider. If you're lowering calories because you're not eating carbs, you're gonna lower fat even more. You can have a lot of calories from protein and fat, and you're not gonna build that much body fat as compared to carbohydrates. I'm sorry, that's our perspective. At least mine. Do you agree with that, Dr. Brewer?
Say that again.
Oh, you were ignoring me.
As
usual.
No,
you're not gonna get fat from calories from fat and proteins as much as from carbs.
I agree. I think this is a critical issue, and I did want you to re-say that way. The bottom line is hormones matter, and insulin is a hormone. You know, again, if you don't think hormones matter, try raising a teenager. Mm-hmm. And adults, middle-agers, boomers have our own hormone problems, and one of the biggest ones, certainly one of the most destructive, is insulin. And if you spend most of your life stimulating insulin with your diet, yeah, you can still push beyond it, but it's a lot harder.
Yep. And the other thing is, there's one thing we haven't mentioned, Dr. Brewer. There are people who are going to the gym to build muscle mass. And I think there's a case to be made. If you want to build muscle mass, you do need to eat carbs. I think so. You might disagree with me, but I'm talking about I'm not talking about metabolically active muscle. I'm talking about muscle mass.
Mass. Clearly it helps. I mean, yeah, it's a heck of a lot easier. So the guys that are wanting to build muscle mass, yeah, carbs help doing that.
But the thing is how you do your preps, and you see all those pre-trainings and eating a lot of the classic one is tuna or chicken and rice, right?
Yeah.
And it works. I mean, it works. They need the energy, and as long as you're building that and using that energy on the muscles instead of storing that as fat, I don't see a problem personally, unless you are very, very, very insulin resistant.
Well, and you've heard me 1,000 times. You're patient with me, but again, with patience, I push back on this thing about muscle mass. Everybody says, okay, especially after age 65,
exactly,
you really have to worry about your muscle mass. And I keep pushing back and saying it's not mass so much as metabolism or strength.
Exactly
and
right.
That's the reason, because so many people then go back and make that connection that you just made. A lot of people feel like you cannot even retain muscle if you're not keeping carbs in your diet.
Yeah, and that's not the case. And I think especially younger audience, or if you're having younger family members, they are gonna eat a lot of carbs if they want to grow muscle mass, and that helps. That works. But I think your point is exactly right. If you are older, over 50, over 60, you might not need more muscle mass. It's more about the quality of that muscle, not about the amount.
Right.
Can you? And I think you can answer this one. So if your keto mojo finger stick is 0.5 to 0.9, is that ketotic or not?
Oh, it's mildly. It depends on who you talk to and who's defining ketotic. To me, I think we do I think it's healthier, especially for most of us, to stay mildly ketotic. I don't think you have to be way over 1.
Yeah. Tick had DSR.
Tick had SR.
SR mixed macadamia
That's a hard
nuts
name, and SR.
Yeah, and then we have me that I hardly speak English. Mix macadamia nuts and a square or 2 tastes of wicked dark chocolate in your mouth. I love dark chocolate.
Oh yeah.
But I was seeing some research, and I got into seeing that because of Paul Saladino. I mean, I do follow Paul Saladino. I like his advice, especially on environmental toxins. There is some dark chocolate that has been found to have lead on it. So I mean, how much of that is an impact? It's hard to say. Just so you know. And maybe I'm gonna acknowledge GMK. GMK is not a member, but I think she's one of our probably our number 1 fan. So if you don't like hard-boiled eggs, deviled eggs, very tasty. What is that? What is deviled egg?
Deviled egg, not deviled eggs. Deviled eggs.
Well, I mean, why do you make your language so hard? Spanish is straightforward.
It's true. It's true. English is sort of like, I heard somebody tell me that once when we were traveling Europe, that English is sort of like Spanish and French clothing. You can't really tell. I mean, every rule is only a rule sometimes. Maybe that's why I'm always talking about it depends. English, it depends. Anyhow, deviled eggs, that's what that is. And basically what a deviled egg is, you cut the egg in half, you take the yellow part out, the yolk, you mix it with usually mayonnaise or some other type of sauce, and then put it back in. So you've got I love deviled eggs. And so in fact, I make deviled eggs not with mayonnaise, but I make it with what's called aioli sauce. And aioli sauce is an olive oil based mayonnaise.
Okay,
fantastic. I'll make it with regular.
My problem is not with boiled eggs. My problem is with cold boiled eggs, though. Oh, I'm sorry. Pardon about the noise. Last question. Richard Militello, do you exercise during a 5-day water fast? Don't do it. My personal experience, don't do it. Don't do it.
Richard,
Bottom line.
hear, Richard, go back and find our YouTube live on the day Jesus told his 5-day water fast story.
Number one mistake of fasting.
Now,
Well, I'm
some
gonna
people can do it once you get hardened and trained back
yeah.
into it.
Not at the
But
beginning.
even if you're an arrogant 30-year-old physician who thinks he's got all this whipped and is tired of listening to that old man doctor hobbling along,
That's
when
true.
you decide you want to do a 5-day fast and go out and play soccer with the kids, think a little bit before you try that next time.
All right. I'm going to have to wrap this up. We reached the 1 hour mark. Thank you so much for your patience. Tomorrow we have a live show. Hopefully we're going to post a video on Saturday. Don't miss that one. And next week, I'm going to spoil the beans for those who are still here. Next week, we have a recording with Dr. Gil Carvalho about the blue zones. You'll be surprised about his perspective. So don't miss that one out. See you next week. And Dr. Brewer?
Don't let Tony the Tiger take over dinner.
For sure.